us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Tom, I was born in Chicago, Illinois, in 1925. Went to Nash School, a grammar school. Graduated from there. I went to Austin High School. And I just turned 18, and the war had been on, and I got drafted. And I was shipped to Farragut, Idaho, a naval training base. I was there for, I forget it, the training base maybe was 8 weeks, something like that. Then I went to Virginia. It was an amphibious base. And I was there for about, I don't know, a couple of months. We were living in tents. And then I got the order to go to New Orleans and pick up a ship. And I can remember when I had my sleeping bag over my shoulder, getting aboard this ship. Went down and met the crew. I was assigned to the engine room and never got acquainted with the skipper, never knew the skipper. He very seldom ever came down and talked to us.
What was his name? Do you remember?
Captain Doyle.
Doyle, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was a good skipper. He was a regular Navy man. And I was in the engine room with Floyd Hicks, and I think it was not Patterson. I can't think of the other. There was 3 of us in the engine room. Floyd handled the engines, and I had to stay with the enunciators. And then we had to go check the oil. We had to climb the roof and go down down below and check to make sure the oil was there, that the engine was running.
So how many engines did you have?
There was 2 1260 diesel engines.
Okay.
Loud.
Loud.
Yeah.
Did they give you ear protection?
Huh?
Did they give you earplugs or anything?
No.
No.
That,
Nothing like that.
nothing like it, yeah.
You just had that was your job. You had to do it.
Yeah, it was on 8 hours. I was on 8 hours. No, 4 hours. I was on 4 hours, and I was off 12 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. And we used to sleep in the stern of the ship, the tail end of the ship. And then when I remember a ship that was next to us. I was in the farm medic place. I had a boil on my leg, and the guy medic was going to lance it. I remember that. Mm. And then there was a loud explosion, and we thought the ship got hit by one of the mines. And we ran up topside, and by the time I got up there, it was gone.
A ship next to you.
Yeah, it was gone.
That's a convoy going out of New Orleans.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. It was a freighter. Yeah.
A freighter.
Yeah, something like that.
On your way over to Europe.
No, this was after we were there. This was after.
Okay.
I think this was after D-Day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And.
Tom, I'm going to break in here a little bit. So when you were working on those diesel engines, was your rating a diesel mechanic? What was your rating in the Navy?
No, rating was motor machinist 3rd class. I was 3rd class.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so had you had any training or anything on a diesel ship before?
No training. You filled out a form and they asked you what you did and all that. And for some reason I got to be in the engine room, which I appreciated because if you're a deckhand, that's all you did is chip paint. So I was lucky.
So is that the LST that you were on that you got in New Orleans, or was this a different ship?
No, it was the same ship, Ken.
Okay, so tell me, what was the name of the LST?
The ship, the name of the
Yeah,
ship,
did it
it was the LST 515.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did not have a name.
No, no. She came from Seneca, Illinois,
That's where it was built.
and she only had a skeleton crew, maybe half a dozen guys. And Floyd was one of the guys on it, and it wasn't completely equipped. And then it got into New Orleans, and that's where it got equipped. And then they put an LCT on top of it, on top of the ship.
All right, explain to me what an LCT is.
Well, it was a landing ship that, well, it was maybe 50, 60 feet long, maybe 20, 30 feet wide. And they lifted it up and put it on top of the LST. Okay. Then, when we got to England, they emptied the ballast on the ship and made the ship go this way, and then they kicked the pins out, and then she just went back into the water. And she was used in D-Day.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, so you actually transported a whole
Yeah.
other ship.
Yeah. And
How
the
big
tank deck was loaded with nothing but ammunition. It was loaded with nothing but ammunition on it.
Yeah, describe to us exactly what an LST is.
Well, a LST is about 300 and almost 350 feet long, and she's about 50 feet wide. She has a bow door on the front. The bow door's open, and then there's a ramp that goes down. And then when you put the tanks can ride right onto it and right in the tank deck. So you could hold maybe, I don't know, maybe 5 tanks you could put in. But the tank deck was where we picked up all the wounded and put it in the tank deck. But the tank deck had trucks and tanks, and they had holes in there where they could put chains in them to hold them. But going over, we were loaded with just ammunition and the LCT on the bow. And we sailed from Newfoundland, picked up our convoy, and sailed east, and we went through a lot of ice and stuff like that. It was cold. And I remember the poor guys that were on the bow, they had to really bundle up because it was so cold. But I remember my 19th birthday is when we hit Ireland. Mm-hmm. Yeah, hit Ireland. And then we went down to Southampton, was where our base was. And that's where we loaded up for D-Day. Now, before D-Day, we were supposed to go to Slapton Sands for about 7 or 8 LSTs. 515 was the command ship, and we had a lieutenant commander who was in charge of the fleet. And I remember we sailed about, it was after midnight. It was dark. You couldn't see anything. And I remember we were sailing, and we were supposed to have an English corvette as escort, and for some reason there was a communication with the ship and with them. So I never did see the corvette. So about 1 o'clock we were called to general quarters, and we ran, and I was stationed at a 40 millimeter with Patterson and can't think of his other name. There was 3 of us. I think Patterson was the guy that shot. I was one of those loaders, clips, and one of the guys would just take the empty shells out. Then we were dismissed. They said, secure, just. So I went back to the bunk, and I think we were back there maybe 15 minutes, general quarters went. And I got back into the ship by the 40 millimeter on the starboard side. And as I looked out, I saw an explosion. Next thing I saw another explosion. Next thing I know, I saw another explosion. 3 ships were torpedoed. 289 got hit in the fantail. She didn't sink. I think 531, she got 2 torpedoes in midship, and she sunk. Then the other ship, I can't remember the number, she got hit with a torpedo. The commander aboard the ship said that all of us the ships were supposed to go to the beach. Captain Doyle says, no, I'm going to pick up survivors. So as we were going there, then we got the word that a PT boat was coming after us. So from the bridge, we had phones on each of the phones. From the bridge, they said, hold your fire, telling us how close it was. Then it got to a certain point, then they got the word from the bridge, open fire, and then they opened fire. Next thing I know, they said a torpedo went by our bow. So after that, we started going for survivors, and you could hear the guys screaming. The oil was on there was fire on the bridge all over the place. So we lowered 2 Higgins boats. We opened the bow door and lowered the ramp at a point where the water wouldn't come in. So they were picking up survivors. I remember Floyd Cricks on the starboard side went down a ladder to pick one of the guys up. He got a hold of him, and he was dead. And then I guess he picked up another one. But I remember the guys going by screaming, and it's like we kept hollering at him, hang on, mate, we're gonna pick you up. So we picked up, I don't know, they said about 90. I remember one guy we picked up, we put him on the table. He was military, and he was dead. We couldn't do nothing for him. Then I got the word from one of the officers, said, get us a pillowcase and start picking up dog tags. So we started picking up dog tags. So we were out there for, I think we were out there till 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. Then the British came, then ours came. And I remember when the British were coming and the dead, they were just going right through them. No kids. But I remember the book saying, one of the guys said they were ready to give up in the water. This is from the book. And they said they're ready to give up, and all of a sudden they said the most beautiful ship I ever saw in my life was a 515. And that brings tears to my eyes. But
Captain Doyle. Without him.
Huh? Yeah, everyone Captain Doyle. And then we just went back, and we couldn't talk about it. Nothing could be said about it. And we unloaded. And then, I don't remember. We went back to Southampton. And we just kept making trips back and forth to France. Then we hit D-Day. And when we hit D-Day, it was the D-Day first. We would be the battleship Texas, I think Texas, and then there was another one. I don't know what it was, Nevada or what it was. But we were in there, and we were watching, they were just pounding the beach. And then at 1 o'clock, we went into the beach and opened up and let the troops, not the troops, we had all equipment. And I remember we were on top deck, and a German fighter was coming down to strafe us. And next thing I know was a P-47 on his tail. And he got him, and I remember the thing blew up. And then when I looked up in the sky, there was nothing but bombers going over. Then I saw one bomber, the wing was gone, and the guys were hollering, bail out, bail out, bail out. And then all of a sudden we saw the parachutes coming out. And that's what we did. Most of the time we just made trips back and forth to Southampton. Then we opened the bow doors, and then we waited and we took nothing but wounded. Took wounded. And then there was a time we made 52 trips across the channel, and we used to pick up prisoners, wounded, and that was about our job. And then I remember the buzz bombs going over to London.
So, were you taking on any kind of, was that the one time that the enemy airplane was coming down to strafe you, was that the only time you felt like you were in danger? I mean, were you taking on fire?
Yeah, that was the worst part of it, because the beach was secured. Our biggest worry was the PT boats, submarines, and the mines in the water. And I remember being down in the engine room one time, and there was an explosion, and I thought we got hit. So we ran the ladder to go up and get out, found out that the destroyer was dropping depth charges. They caught, apparently a submarine was there. But I'll tell you, it just scares you thought you really got hit.
I bet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wanted you to back up a little bit. In between Operation Tiger and D-Day, you say you were already making trips across the channel?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Was that
when D-Day, we stayed there till, I don't know, 11, 12 o'clock at night. We were picking up wounded, and we picked up a lot of the paratroopers. I remember talking to one of the paratroopers on the fantail, and he was showing some of his guns and things that he picked up. But our big job was to bring supplies, to take survivors, wounded. We took prisoners back and forth to England, to Southampton. That's where we did it.
What did those guys look like?
Huh?
The prisoners, what did those guys look like? Can you describe
Well,
them a little bit?
the story I heard from the guys talking is the young guys claimed that Hitler was going to win the war. But there was an officer on there, and I think he got shot in the back, and then he was up topside, and he was glad. The older guys were glad that, as far as they were concerned, the war was over for them. Yeah.
What beach did you originally land on, George?
I think it was Omaha.
Omaha or Utah?
It was either Omaha or Utah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because we landed on all the beaches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Skipper never came. I remember we had Liberty in the town, and we went around the town. A bunch of us guys went out, and we were, I don't know how long, and the tide was, we had to get back to the ship because the tide was coming in, and we were late. And the skipper was up on the top bridge looking down. And I thought, oh my God, we're going to get it. Nothing was said about it. None.
Well, I want to go back to when you were making the trips across the channel in between before D-Day. So when the day came, did you know it? I mean, did you know?
Did we know it was?
Yeah.
No, all I remember is when we were supposed to go, I think on the 4th or the 5th, and the weather was terrible, and the raw, you couldn't do anything, so they was canceled. But we knew we were going. We knew, because then we got out there with all the fleet. We knew, but the weather was so bad that we just stayed. And the story I heard is when Eisenhower met with all the generals, and as a matter of fact, when I went back years later, we went to the house where they had the central intelligence, and that's where Eisenhower was. And they were talking about when they were going to go, and finally he said, we're going on June 6th, and that's where we're going. And that's what we did. But they just gave the order, and then we just sailed, you know. But the whole fleet of us, all the LSTs.
Did you have any feelings about what you were to face? I mean, I know you probably heard about the Atlantic Wall and all the defenses and that sort of thing. What kind of a feeling do you think you remember having when you knew it was time to go?
Well, I was worried. We were all worried because figuring we were going to land on the beach. We just didn't know whether we were going to make it because we were probably expendable. You know, they said once they made one landing, the ship paid its sail. But we were very fortunate, you know. And I didn't think we were going to make it when we got attacked.
Well, that was my next question. D-Day almost seemed like it was light compared to what you went through before.
Oh yeah.
So tell me about that. Tell me about how Operation Tiger pretty much prepared you for D-Day. You think it got you prepared? Think you got you thinking, hey, we're no surprises on D-Day.
All I can say is that I remember that this isn't going to be easy. We were worried that will we make it? Will we make it? And figuring when we were going to land on that beach, whether we were going to be expendable. And we were very fortunate that when we went in, the beach was secured. The beach was secured, except for that one time when that plane came down. And then I really got scared when that guy started coming down, because we were all up top side, you know. But when we got attacked on April 28th, I don't know.
So you were manning the gun? You were help manning the gun? So you had two different jobs? You had the one down in the engine room?
Yeah.
And then when they go to general quarters?
Yeah, that was the job.
So tell me about that job. Tell me about having to come out of the engine room and go up and man your gun.
Well, when the general quarters called, and we got in the guns, we were really nervous. I was really nervous. We were all nervous. We didn't know, because we knew it was PT boats, and we thought and the fact that Captain Doyle said, we're going to go help. We're going to help save. And then I got thinking, boy, are we going to get hit? And the fact that they said one torpedo went by our bow. If we'd have got hit, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have been here. And when I think about LST 289, her whole fantail was gone. But the one 531 got 2 torpedoes, and she was gone in 5 to 10 minutes.
All hands on board,
yeah.
Just about.
And the screaming, and the water, and the oil, and the fires. And you read the book where the guys were jumping off and the fire, and then they had to go underneath the water to get away from the oil and the water, and they tried to pick up as much as they could to survive. Some of them, there may be a raft there, and you couldn't have too many guys on the raft. And I remember in the book, the one guy, I think was a cook on the ship, and one of the guys told him, he says, just stay with me. He says, I can't swim, he can't swim. He says, well, be with me, I'll be with you. You got it, Tom. And then he jumped, they never saw him again. You know, and you stop and think of how many guys, not only Navy guys, but look at all the personnel we lost.
So you had Army guys on your ship.
Oh yeah.
That were practicing hitting the beach.
Oh yeah.
That was
that's what Fast and Sands was. Yeah.
That was your last rehearsal, correct?
Yeah, but we never made it.
D-Day.
Never made it.
Yeah.
And you know they took that whole town out.
Yeah.
The government
paid them. to move?
Yeah. Well, the Prime Minister said that he wanted that out of there because he wanted that terrain for practice. That's what. He moved all those people out of that town, and we never got to.
You never touch
No.
slapped in sands.
No, only when we picked up the survivors. I think I don't know whether we took them there or where we took them.
Okay.
It was so dark.
Yeah.
It was so dark. Yeah.
I don't know what you were feeling, because I mean that night was supposed to be a routine practice night,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
it just happened. I mean, you thought, oh, the worst, this is going to be D-Day, but no, it happened
Yeah.
before that.
Yeah. My nephew was born on that day.
Did you know that?
That's why I remember the date so much. Yeah.
That's incredible. There's a couple other questions that the museum guys down there want to talk about. So, what do you remember most about D-Day, other than the airplane coming down, strafing you guys?
Well, what I remember is the battle wagons shooting. I remember, boy, they were just pounding that beach. And they were just pounding that beach. And then I remember the transport ship, if I remember that. The transport ship was there, and they were lowering the guys, and they were getting in the Higgins boats. And then they just went around and round and round, and then they were gone. But by 1 o'clock, the beach was pretty well secured. And then the order came for us to go in, and we went in. So I don't know how many other LSTs went in because the beach was so long. But we were supposed to go at the one beach, open up and unload, stay there. Then the ambulances were coming, and they were picking up all the wounded and putting them in the tank deck.
What kind of wounded did you see? Do you remember what you saw? Like, what were these?
No,
Army,
not
or
really.
these-
Not really remembered. No, I just remember the guys. The guys were carrying them in there and just putting them in there. Didn't get a chance to talk to them. Didn't get a chance to talk to them because probably weren't allowed to go down there. But they had the ambulances there and just walking on those and bringing them into. So when you look at the size of that tank deck, you know, you could have put 500 people in there. You know, so
Now, how did the day end? You said you made 50 what? How many trips?
52 trips.
So that was on into the night, correct?
Huh?
That would be on into the night.
End of the year.
Oh, okay. But that day, how late? I mean, were you there into the night?
Oh yeah, we used to leave at night, and we'd get there in the morning, whatever time we get there, and then when we unload, and then whatever we had picked up, we didn't leave until the night.
Is there a reason why you didn't leave till night?
I don't know. Maybe because of submarines or torpedo boats or something like that. But I remember when we used to go back to England, I used to see the buzz bombs going.
What is a buzz bomb? Tell me what a buzz bomb is.
Well, it just flew. It was a bomb that just flew, and it would land, and it would just run out of gas, and then it would. But it was targeted for London most of the time. But I remember when 3 of us guys went to New London for a 3-day pass, and we looked, and you could see nothing but houses destroyed, miles and miles and miles.
What did those buzz bombs sound like?
Oh, I didn't hear the buzz. I didn't hear it because they were so high.
So
They were just like a plane go, but you didn't hear them. You saw the light on them. You could see the lights, the flames coming out of there. Because this was at night, you could see them.
So they were jet engines.
Ramjet.
Rams. Okay, yeah. I just wanted to
And that's
make
how
sure.
that's how it made the sound.
Well, that's why I was wondering where the buzz bomb came from.
Yeah.
It was almost
Yeah.
like a drrrr
Oh,
type
okay.
sound. You can hear it.
Okay.
If you pull some of them
Yeah.
out. And then that sound would stop,
Hmm.
and then the bomb would just
Oh yeah, I think it just ran on.
just
Yeah,
ran out of gas.
yeah,
Yeah.
but mostly for London. But the story I had, we had an accident with another ship. We stayed in Southampton to get repaired. The other ship went to Tilbury in London. The story as I heard, that ship got hit with a bomb, and we got part of the crew that came on our ship. Now, I don't know how many got killed when it hit that ship, but that's the story that buzzed on the ship.
How would you say that this affected your life? Something like traumatic like that happening in your young life?
I don't know. I was so young, you know. I was just anxious to go home. But what made it comfortable is the guys that I was with. We were all in the same ship, and we looked out for each other. And it just felt that camaraderie. And I remember when we were back at Southampton, Johnny, I can't think of Johnny's last name, played a guitar. And we used to get in the fantail. And we were a mixture of Southerners, Northerners, Westerners, and we were in the fantail. And I remember one of the songs. They used to play the guitar, and we used to just listen to the brothers singing. And I remember, what was the song? What was the song? Down in the valley so new. I remember that, and that was a comfort. It was a comfort. And then we used to get on Liberty. 2 or 3 of us go together. I remember Eddie and I and Red Kroll. He had the most beautiful beard red. And we went to Washington, D.C., and the 3 of us, Eddie and I, he was an electrician, and so was Red Kroll. Red Kroll he worked in the auxiliary engine room, and I think Eddie was an electrician. Yeah.
Tom, we got about 4 minutes left before I got to get on the computer. You got anything you want to ask? I mean, you went over there with him, so anything you remember?
When we went back last year, what did you think about the speeches at Omaha Beach Cemetery?
Oh.
Remember, we had President Macron and we had President Trump,
Yeah.
and they came up and they were shaking everybody's hands.
Yeah.
Did that,
That
make you feel proud?
Oh yeah.
What you
Oh
did?
yeah.
Seeing
Yeah.
the other guys?
Just felt with the big, with the
Yeah.
president there.
Yeah.
Yeah. How often do you get that experience?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah. We were pretty close to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't get a chance to go in the cemetery though, did we, Tom?
We did not.
Yeah.
Did you lose any close friends?
Hmm?
Did you lose any close friends during either one of those operations?
No, didn't lose. No, we didn't lose anybody on the ship. No. I'll tell you, it was. I remember when we got on that ship in New Orleans, we had a breakdown crew, and I think we had a fire on it. And all the guys would say, "Uh-oh, this ain't gonna. I don't think this is going to be a good ship." She never got a scratch. Not a scratch.
So in New Orleans is when they put the guns on.
Yeah,
And
that's when they
everything else, right?
fixed all of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But we had a good skipper.
Yeah.
Yeah, and never talked to us. But he was a regular Navy man. Yeah.
How do you feel about his decision, though? Because, I mean, you guys were supposed to go back to the beach that night in April. But he made an executive decision. How do you feel about his decision?
Well, I don't know. I was scared. I was scared because I thought we were going to get hit by a torpedo, and the fact that the one went by our bow, if it would have hit us, you know, it would have been terrible. But you know, the Navy would have, if he'd have survived, he probably would have got court-martialed because he went against the commander.
But you guys saved lives, though.
Oh yeah, yeah. But we lost. When you stop and think of the ships, we had at least 7 or 8 ships. 3 were torpedoed, and they were full of ammunition, troop guys, fully equipped. We must have lost, they said, close to 1,000. 1,000. Guys that never got a chance. A lot of times
But you did save some of those lives, though.
we saved maybe about 90, something like that. But a lot of them were gone, were dead. But the second ship that got hit twice, they were gone. We didn't get a chance to save any of them. If we did, we were lucky.
Can you talk about the life belt that the Army guys wore?
Yeah.
And you had one that was different.
Yeah, we had the Mae West. The worry about the Army guys, they had the belts. That was wrong because when the torpedo hit and then they jumped and they were unconscious, their head went down. But if they'd had a Mae West help, it would have saved them because a lot of them were unconscious. But most of the Army guys had the belts, and that's, I think, a lot. But the water was cold. It was cold. The oil was burning. The guys were screaming.
The water was around 40 degrees.
Oh, yeah.
So hypothermia got a lot of the guys.
Most of them, yeah.
All right, I'm going to let you two just go ahead and keep talking a little bit, and I'm going to get this.
Tell me
ready.
about the last man that you were able to rescue.
The what?
The last man, you said he was bigger, and that's probably what saved him.
Oh yeah, he was out there in the water and freezing, and we finally picked him up on a small boat and picked him up. But what saved him, he was so big and fat. That's what saved him. Yeah.
So he had some protection from the hypothermia.
Yeah.
And his size kept him bobbing with his head above the water.
Yeah.
So that's what saved him.
Yeah.
Was his size.
But most of them, Tom, just.
Yeah.
I remember, the guys were screaming, and we were hollering.
We did, yeah, got it. Good morning.
Hey, guys.
Hang on,
I'm
we'll
glad you're here.
pick you
I'm
up.
glad you came